You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Friday the 18th of May. Thieves steal bronze memorial plaque in Cheshire. Yet another illegal kills British father on road. Euronews, not from Nick Griffin, but from the Belly of Hampshire. Israel goes into lockdown mode against Iran. China's most wanted, finally behind bars. Thought for the day, a short text on Afghanistan. UK News. Metal thieves have stolen a memorial plaque made of bronze in memory of the children killed by the IRA when a bomb was put in a bin near a toy store in the centre of Warrington, Cheshire, in 1993. The plaque was to remember the children killed by the IRA, Jonathan Ball, aged just 3 years old, and Tim Parry, aged just 12. Children were out buying flowers and cards that Saturday morning, the day before Mother's Day. The cowardly IRA attack also injured 54 other innocent people in Warrington that day. One reporter said, "Can you imagine a certain person from the TUC who marched through Liverpool with IRA supporters to put his hand in his pocket for a new plaque?" An illegal immigrant has killed Malcolm Anderson, a British father of 4, when he fell asleep at the wheel whilst having no insurance or driving licence. The question must be asked, why was this man not tracked down and deported? After all, he had been in Britain for a decade, unchecked by police, probably because of the race card. Iqbal Singh gave a false name to police after the crash to avoid being deported. He almost killed the rest of Mr Anderson's family, who were travelling in another car on the M6 near Coventry. Mr Anderson's son, aged 13, was injured along with his wife. The illegal immigrant only got 2 years, an outrage and an insult to a great man who had a beautiful wife and children. The family was travelling home from the wedding of Mr Anderson's niece. The border agency is to blame in the eyes of the public. In the year 2000, Iqbal was refused entry into Britain after going on the run. The border agency did not capture him and remove him out of the country. A World at 8 reporter commented that we must understand that the border agency is staffed by immigrants, understaffed by Brits, and not encouraged to actually do their jobs. The problem of illegals has now become so large and so endemic that it is beyond normal actions. Euronews. Today we will have to do without the dulcet tones of Nick Griffin MEP because the poor man has taken a short holiday for the last week. There are a few pictures from the Norfolk Broads on his TwitPics and he will be back with us Sunday, and of course with his own Euro report from the belly of the beast on Friday the 25th. Thought for the day, not from the belly of the beast, but from the belly of Hampshire. Well, as I certainly do not have the in-depth knowledge of the workings of the European Parliament, as does our Nick Griffin MEP, I am a newbie, so therefore had to resort to the web for information. On the short exploration I have made, they have been very busy boys in the EU this week. To name just 3 items, they are expanding the sanctions against Syria and have imposed asset freezes and visa bans on 3 persons and 2 firms associated with Syria's present regime. They're also increasing funding to the Afghan police, 2 of which incidentally killed 2 of our serving soldiers last week. Their funding is being increased for 2012 to 2013. This must be part of the building up of Afghanistan after a worldwide push to destroy it, both from the Russians and the Allies. The Schengen report is currently covering the potential Greek border problem. The EU are looking into the Ukraine because they fear the Ukrainian government is being politically motivated, and the Chinese are apparently coming out with a new method of controlling their industrial effluent. It would seem that the EU doesn't just reach out and control Europe. It has a worldwide network and puts its pudgy little fingers in everyone's pie. I had no idea of the web that surrounds Merkel and the Illuminati of the European Circle. No wonder the EU needs so many thousands of people to impose their ideas on the rest of the world. Nick Griffin was right when he commented on the thousands of meetings, committees and interests and the general lack of time allowed to actually comment on exactly what is going on. It would be an impossible task to know who and what is passing whatever and for whose benefit, but I think we all know the answer to the last sentence. It is for theirs, the Union of Merkel, and they are legion. World News. Israel is being described as going into lockdown mode by the West over Iran. Israel, who has nuclear warheads, is against Iran having nuclear missiles and may use a preemptive strike against Iran. Although the attack would be conventional, it could cost thousands of lives. Iran is trying to build a nuclear power station for electricity, it claims. Israel is about to decide when to attack, some sources have claimed. China's most wanted criminal is finally behind bars. Li Zhangxing, a mass smuggler, bought off Chinese officials in a country that is rife with corruption. For years he paid off the communist government, who like all commie countries was doing it for the good of the people rubbish. Zhangxing received a life sentence. More than 25 officials were bribed by this criminal. Thought for the day. A short background about Afghanistan. The one good thing about research is that when you come across facts you would never know, and I have put this one into the world today just for interest. It is about Afghanistan, which is a country which should interest us as we are losing many brave men and women on that ground. I am starting and finishing with the Russian invasion of 1979. Afghanistan summarised the Cold War. From the West's point of view, Berlin, Korea, Hungary and Cuba had shown the way communism wanted to proceed, and Afghanistan was a continuation of this. In Christmas 1979, Russian paratroopers landed in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. The country was already in the grip of civil war. The Prime Minister, Hazifullah Amin, had tried to sweep aside Muslim tradition within Afghanistan because he wanted to lead a communist-based government, a belief that rejects religion, and this was another reason for such obvious discontent within that country. Thousands of Muslim leaders had been arrested and many more had fled the capital and gone to the mountains to escape Amin's place. Also, thousands of these men had joined the Mujahideen, a guerrilla force on a holy mission for Allah. They wanted the overthrow of the Amin government. To cap it all, the Mujahideen declared a jihad, a holy war, on the supporters of Amin. This was also extended to the Russians, who were now in Afghanistan trying to maintain the power of the Amin government. The Russians claimed that they had been invited in by the Amin government and that they were not invading the country. They claimed that their task was to support a legitimate government and that the Mujahideen were no more than terrorists. So on December the 27th, 1979, Amin was shot by the Russians and was replaced by Babrak Kemal. Most of the Afghan soldiers had deserted to the Mujahideen, and Kemal needed the 85,000 Russian soldiers to keep him in power. The Russians resorted to using napalm, poison gas and helicopter gunships against the Mujahideen, but they experienced exactly the same military scenario the Americans had done in Vietnam. It would appear that this reasoning has stuck throughout the 90s, the fall of the Berlin Wall and well into the 21st century. This war-torn country has involved soldiers of every religious persuasion and many ethnic groups. It has brought misery on any nation who has whether wittingly or unwittingly become enmeshed in its coils. Any nation or country with a strong inherited religious culture like Afghanistan who deviates towards communism or indeed democracy is doomed to failure and death. In the Islamic calendar it is the year 1433, and that says it all. The Muslim nation, and I mean the vast hordes of colonists every country in Europe, Asia and the rest of the world contain, are so busy buying up other countries that they have failed to grow past feudalism. If it were not for oil, they would be back in the Dark Ages, and for all the democratic protests throughout the Middle East, they have reduced themselves and these countries to war zones of an intensity that only Muslim fundamentalists seem to attain. Ignoring the people and the land and adhering to a strict and unforgiving religion, they prove that this is not the way forward for peoples of a non-Muslim heritage. The British colonials had trouble with the Afghani people, and this cycle of war has gone on long enough. The world needs to leave them alone. They do not need democracy there, and despite the witterings of a few greedy Afghani and Pakistani politicians who make all the right noises to get more funding, most of the indigenous people there do not want democracy. They want a Muslim fundamentalist state. It is us in Europe and elsewhere that practice the two-faced politics of today. We stop Muslims having their own way in their own countries and encourage them to have their culture in countries which are not their own. A dichotomy, and a dangerous one. And finally, an 83-year-old British man named as Nicholas Grace has become the oldest man alive in Britain to kindly give away one of his perfectly healthy kidneys. The kind-hearted man donated his kidneys to save the life of a complete stranger. He has to be one of the most courageous and generous men this country has ever had. I will second that. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart, and the team of Radio Britain and I wish you all a very happy and safe weekend. By the IRA, Jonathan Ball, aged just 3 years old, and Tim Parry, aged just 12. Children were out buying flowers and cards that Saturday morning, the day before Mother's Day. The cowardly IRA attack also injured 54 other innocent people in Warrington that day. One reporter said, "Can you imagine a certain person from the TUC who marched through Liverpool with IRA supporters to put his hand in his pocket for a new plaque?" An illegal immigrant has killed Malcolm Anderson, a British father of 4, when he fell asleep at the wheel whilst having no insurance or driving licence. The question must be asked, why was this man not tracked down and deported? After all, he had been in Britain for a decade. Highlights of the news today, Friday the 18th of May. Thieves steal bronze memorial plaque in Cheshire. Yet another illegal kills British father on road. Euronews, not from Nick Griffin, but from the Belly of Hampshire. Israel goes into lockdown mode against Iran. China's most wanted finally.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Behind bars. Thought for the day, a short text on Afghanistan. UK News. Metal thieves have stolen a memorial plaque made of bronze in memory of the children killed by the IRA when a bomb was put in a bin near a toy store in the centre of Warrington, Cheshire in 1993. The plaque was to remember the children killed